awareness with and a bit of practice in the body. And so we're going to be standing up. And before we do that, again, this capacity to just notice how you get up out of the chair, or if you're lying down, what part of the body moves first? How do you actually get up? And just observing it, what moves first and then what moves and what comes next. And then just coming to a standing position, and then we'll take it from there. I'm going to stop my video at the moment. Watching, noticing how the body feels, noticing if there's any stiffness anywhere or looseness. And just again, we're going to spend a couple of minutes just in a loosening up, walking practice. So as you are, just bringing your awareness to the body, your feet on the floor, and noticing those connections between your feet and the top of your head, and there's kind of a body between the two. And then whatever walking practice worked for you earlier on, the LMP, timing it with your breath, bringing your attention to a part of the foot and following it, or noticing the whole leg. In just a minute or two, and I'll let you know when we'll transition back, and just a little walking meditation for a few minutes at your own pace. And perhaps as the day is progressing, perhaps you can just ever so slightly open that lens of awareness that although you're paying attention to your feet or your legs, the walking, you can also be aware in a peripheral way on the edges of your awareness, a softer focus, as it were, of the room or any sounds, without those things carrying you off into being the primary focus of your attention. So just as we can watch center stage the main person speaking, which is our feet, it's not that we're unaware of what else is going on the stage. It's just that we can choose to open the lens of awareness. And if that's too challenging for you, just close the aperture a little bit on the lens and just pay attention to the feet. No forcing required, no judgment required. Just suggestions and invitations. And perhaps bringing in those same qualities of mind and heart that we've been speaking about and feeling, slowing down, being peaceful, not judging, not being attached to stories, kindness, finding beauty and joy in the moment as it is. It's always here. The awareness itself is the foundation of the experience. If you weren't aware and paying attention, you wouldn't, in fact, be having any experiences because you wouldn't be paying attention to them. So the awareness itself is part of the experience. Being careful not to think too much about any of the words or all of the words. If they don't land with you, that's fine. Just stay with the experience. And we're going to be coming to a place of stillness and standing. And I would just ask you to find a place in the room you're in where you might be able to move your hands outwards and not be touching or hitting anything. If your hands are lifted up to shoulder height, and just finding a spot and settling in just the standing position and noticing the transition from movement to standing stillness. And your feet are placed about shoulder width apart, parallel to each other. And noticing there's a triangle somewhere about the ball of your foot, just inside the outer edge of your foot behind your little toe, and then back at your heel, and there's sort of a triangle there. And just allowing the body to settle so the weight is more or less evenly distributed on either side. And noticing in even in this position that the body moves slightly to keep you in balance. And if you're at all unsteady, please keep your eyes open and a gentle focus on something just below eye level on the wall ahead of you. And then just moving upwards a bit with awareness, your knees. And just allowing a little bend in your knees so they're not locked. Just allowing your knees to perhaps move a little forward or backwards, ever so gently, and just allowing the knees to find a place where they can rest. And there is the sweet spot that the body knows how to find where, in fact, the bones are doing the bulk of holding us up vertically. The muscles are merely there to make little adjustments so we don't fall over, but we sort of let the bones, our marrow, know where that spot is. And so the knees are just slightly bent, and they just slightly, perhaps, just at the front of the ankles. And if your knees are over the front of your toes, you're kind of too far forward. If there's a little bend in the knee. And then moving upwards, becoming aware of your hips, bringing your hips into the field of awareness. And again, you'll have some sense that if you bending slightly forward, you'll notice there's a resistance for your hips to move back, or if you're leaning backwards, your hips will kind of want to bring themselves forward. So just finding that sweet spot. And it's going to be where your hips are above the knees, which in turn are above the ankles. So the least amount of energy required by the muscles. It's not zero, but just the least amount. You perhaps are aware of little vibrations in the calf muscles, the thigh muscles, even your hip muscles or the buttocks. And then moving to your lower back, you'll notice that forward curve of the lower lumbar spine. And not stretching again, just you may notice a little upward tilt of the hips. You may notice a little easing of the lower back. And then just allowing the spine to align itself as you follow it upwards to the bottom of the chest. And then the spine at the back of our chest has a curve the other way. And then we get to our neck. And any movements or adjustments you make, please do them very, very slowly and very gently. And if there's any pain, back off. It's not about forcing anything. It's actually the opposite. It's about allowing things to come into their harmonic, their equilibrium. Noticing your shoulders if they're hunched forwards. We often have a tendency, as was said earlier, to scrunch our shoulders up to our ears, or because we spend time in front of a screen, the shoulders are forward curved. So just perhaps even moving the shoulders around a bit, a little bit of a rotation backwards, slowly rotating your shoulders backwards. Maybe pull them upwards a bit to your ears. And just noticing your spine and aligning the shoulders with the bottom of your ears and your neck. So that in a way, if you were looking at the side of your body, You could draw a line from the ankles up through the knees, the center of the hips, going upwards. Obviously, the curve of the spine would go around the straight line, but at the top it would come up and align with the neck and with your shoulders, which are just hanging off your shoulder blade, your scapula. And then the head. And very, very, very gently, no jerking or sharp or pushed movements, just perhaps moving your head a little bit from side to side, ever so gently and slowly. So one ear is coming down to the shoulder, and when there's any point of resistance, just return to the midline very slowly, and the other side. So we're finding a center point where the head is not tilted to the left or the right. And then we're going to change the axis of awareness. So the head on the neck could be tilted forwards and downwards. You may notice that in the droop of the chin. And if it's leaning too far forward, there may be a little tug at the back of the neck. So again, just very, very slowly, no pushing at all. Just past the point of the upright midline, moving the head, looking upwards to the ceiling, perhaps, or just downwards, and finding that center point. So that the head is now in alignment with the neck and everything else in that straight line. And you'll notice perhaps that most comfortable position for the chin is actually not where the lower jaw is parallel to the floor. So if you want to be just checking that out, where you are imagining your jaw is parallel to the floor, just drop the chin slightly and you'll feel a little bit of release in the back of your neck. Let's bring awareness to any tightness in the jaw and just noticing it, and just being aware that even breathing it out and just noticing it, you're almost giving it permission to relax. If there's any tightness, the lips are just touching each other, perhaps, or ever so slightly open. And the tongue is resting comfortably on the floor of the mouth, and the tip perhaps just slightly up against the inside of your upper front teeth, or perhaps just behind your lower teeth. Full permission. And recognizing that the body did all the adjusting that was required. We just created the space in which the body was able to adjust according to what was needed. We don't tell ourselves how to stand or walk. The mind actually needs to get out the way a little bit. It can just invite and create the space in which the body wisdom can express what it knows how to do perfectly. And this is called the tree pose. This could be a mindful body practice all on its own. It's a little different than the body scan in that we're actually paying attention to balance and awareness of exactly how the body's lying and making adjustments as needed. But in a way, of course, it is a body scan. And like every tree, it has roots. And notice how we can shift our attention back to the bottom of our feet and noticing those contact points on the bottom of our feet to the carpet or the floor and ultimately to the earth. Yes, birds can fly. They can also light on the land as we are. And we're parked right at this interface between the earth and the atmosphere. We have roots and wings. And so in keeping with the idea of the wings, the branches that reach upwards to the sun, just, and again, very, very gently and very, very slowly, we're listening to our bodies. You just pay attention to your left arm and very slowly moving your left arm, staying in the vertical axis, down the outside of your left thigh, and very slowly just allowing the right arm to come upwards. Just noticing the arm lifting upwards to your shoulder. If there's any discomfort, just stop. And if it can come up higher, come up higher. And so your fingers, just moving your fingers a little bit, and to only to the degree where you're comfortable, just perhaps feeling a little stretch on the right side of your armpit, the right side of your chest. Staying in the vertical axis, it's easy to lean forward when you're doing this. No need to move your head at all. Just let the head do what it wants to do at this point. Just reaching upwards and moving your fingers a little bit. As if you're feeling up there for perhaps there's a piece of fruit. Just out of reach and you're just trying to reach it a little bit. And then you accept the fact you can't get there and just let that right arm come down very, very slowly. And noticing the left arm coming back up. Noticing where that right arm might be feeling a little bit alive right now. And then as you let it rest, it comes back. Perhaps there's a little warmth or tingling in that right arm. Nothing to worry about or be alarmed. Just let it come back to baseline. Noticing a difference between the left side and the right side. Or not. And then very, very slowly, very gently, the right arm moving downwards in the vertical axis. Perhaps down your thigh a little bit and noticing the left shoulder and the left arm coming up. If you left the left arm out, it would be jealous. You want to give it a chance to perhaps try and pick that piece of fruit. And very, very gently, if there's any discomfort at all, just stop right there and without judgment, hold it as long as you can. If you even need to bring it down again, just bring it down. Moving your fingers just a little bit. Noticing any little bit of stretch where things are coming alive. Things might be a little hot on the left side of your body. But be careful not to bend your back too much, one side or the other, paying attention, paying attention. Try and quietly to the fruit. And then returning back down the left arm, noticing the different in the left arm as it comes down to settle in that position. Noticing one of the two arms might be a little more catching your attention right now. For a return. Let's do the same thing again on the right hand side, going up. Very, very gently. This isn't a speed test. It's an awareness of what the body does as it moves and how the different pieces are there. Just paying attention to the body and movement. Even as we're standing, we're still moving here, reaching up to just touch the edge of that piece of fruit. And then just imagining that you're picking that fig or apple or orange or lemon or pear or whatever is your fancy, and just feel the stem break away from the branch as your right arm comes down. And you're looking forward to eating this piece of fruit. And you and the piece of fruit are one now, you've got it. One joyful anticipation and delight. And the left arm is jealous. So the right arm goes down the thigh and says, "It's your turn, honey. You come up and see if you can grab a piece of juicy fruit." And the left hand gently, gently, gently grabs a piece of fruit. And it too has a moment of delight and anticipation as the fruit breaks away from the branch. And now you've got a piece of fruit in each of your arms, each of your hands. And let your pieces of fruit fall to the floor. They'll be there for you to come back to. And just bringing both your arms up in front of you, lifting slowly, slowly. Just being aware of your arms moving through the air, perhaps even touching the air. Just to shoulder height. And wiggling your fingers. And perhaps jiggling your arms a little bit. Perhaps getting the shoulders a little bit involved. And just moving a little bit without any particular goal. Just allowing a bit of wobble in the body, a little bit of shaking out. And then we're going to transition back to where we come to a position of stillness, either sitting or lying as you were. We're transitioning, and again, just noticing how your body gets back to the place where you were sitting. Which foot moves first? What's going on in your mind? How you actually bend or shift or move down. Coming back into stillness of the body in the seated position.